Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's second video, and what a video I've got for you here. This is the GavsWeatherVids Autumn 2021 forecast. Can you believe that? We've been doing autumn updates over the past 3 months. We've done 10 autumn updates as well as 3 season model roundups for autumn 2021, and it's all been building up to this. Yes, this is the GavsWeatherVids Autumn forecast. I should get on with that for you very shortly. Just say that the first video released today was our 7 AM forecast. We've got the final, for this year anyway, GavsWeatherVids Sunday Roundup. We've got a little sneak peek / what goes into the winter forecast video coming up for you around 3-ish this afternoon. Because the autumn forecast is about to be released imminently, it means long range bandwagon will be rolling on to the next season. The next season will be winter, so we're going to have a little video explaining what goes into winter forecast and a bit of sneak peek as well. That'll be coming up later on this afternoon. I'll be live streaming from 6 PM this evening. Going to be a big live stream. I think it's a Sunday live stream, so got to do some long range. I'm sure you'll have questions about the autumn forecast and sneak peek winter and whatnot as well. So I'm going to see you live from 6 o'clock. I want to say thank you so much to Rich, your incredible autumn updates, autumn forecast, I should say, GIF. Amazing. I love it. I love that GIF. Thank you so much, Rich, for the autumn forecast GIF. Very different with the rain falling, and I love that. Thank you so much, Rich. Thank you so much for the autumn forecast. Also going to say thank you so much to Terry as well. In a moment, you're going to see the spreadsheet that Terry Scully has compiled to be able to allow us to do this forecast. So that's going to be based. That spreadsheet is based on all of the updates that we've done over the past 3 months. Everything we've looked at is in the spreadsheet. You'll see which years are coming out on top in terms of our methodology, for the forecast. The forecast will be partly based upon that. So thank you so much to Terry for the spreadsheet. Thank you so much to Shrine as well for all of the help during this season of updates. Shrine Bruin as well. Big shout out for Shrine also. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of the people who helped me get all of these long range models together. To Richard, to Terry, and also to Shrine as well. So this is going to be quite a long video, of course, with long range. So it's going to be kept within the autumn forecast as it is now. Playlist on the GavsWeatherVids YouTube homepage. You had to watch the video on demand whenever you would like, and we'll be able to come back and look to see how the forecast does as we progress through the autumn. And of course, we will verify this forecast anyway when we get into winter. We'll go back and verify the forecast. But I better get on with it, I think. So let's turn off the webcam. And we're going to have a look at the spreadsheet first of all. So this is it. And at this point, as you know, I always feel very bad because I can't, go into really precise detail and look at every single individual year because we're going all the way back to 1836 with this and right way forward to 2020. So we have so many years that are within the spreadsheet, and again, I would love to be able to show you this in depth, and I could do a video on it in its own terms. Really, the work that goes into this, that Terry puts into this, it could easily account for a video in its own terms, but of course, I have also got to show you the data, the analogs, and I'm going to show you or give you the forecast as well. So we'll just talk a little bit about the spreadsheet, and then unfortunately, regrettably, you'll have to move on. But there's no other way of compiling, all of the updates that we do without having some sort of means of bringing it all together via a spreadsheet as we do. So just thank you so much, Terry. Terry knows how much I appreciate what he does with this. And thank you so much to Terry Scully. Okay, so let's explain what we're looking at here then. So if you've seen our forecast before, you'll know, but I have to assume that some people are watching this forecast and they've never seen a GavsWeatherVids seasonal forecast before. So this column just here are all things that we've been looking at through our season of autumn updates. So, for example, we've got springs with a CT of 7.8 to 8.0. We've also got the solar phase, just there, solar phases. And we've also got July with a CT of 17.4 to 18.0, for example. We've got back-to-back La Nina autumns. And we've got the top 20 dullest August just there, among many other things that we've been looking at through the methodology. Also got the June CT, for example, there. So this is the column that, you know, is explaining what we've been looking at through this season. And these are all of our years, beginning with 1836, just there, and in a moment we'll go all the way down to the very bottom, which will be to 2020. Now, the X's that you see in the columns, for example, in 1839, this column just here, we have 1X. 1X in 1839, and that is for England and Wales precipitation in the month of May, I think. So that is a hit with the GavsWeatherVids methodology. So the year of 1839 just has one hit amongst all the things we've been looking at through this season of autumn updates. 3 months worth. It's only cropped up one time, and that is for England and Wales precipitation in the month of May. This column just here is for 1841, and that shows 2 hits. You can see that quite nicely. So we've got a hit there, we've got an X there, we've got a hit just there. So that's shown up twice in our methodology. And this column just here is for 1851. That's actually shown up 3 times. It showed up twice for the spring, both for spring CT and also for spring England and Wales precipitation. It also showed up there. It also had a hit there, and that is for July England and Wales rainfall. But these years that have 1, 2, or 3 hits are not really enough to be included within the forecast. You know, we want to have years that have a greater hit range than that. So any year that is like 1, 2, or 3 hits is excluded. So, for example, 1839 is excluded. 1841 is excluded. 1840 with 1 hit is excluded. 1847 with 2 hits excluded. 1848 with 1 hit excluded. 1849 completely excluded. That hasn't had a hit at all. It's not cropped up once. And 1850 with 3 hits, that is also excluded. So you see the way this works. Although every year has to have its own, you know, if it crops up once or twice, it has to be included as a hit, but then it gets excluded. So the vast majority of the years that we have within this spreadsheet never make it to the forecast and are excluded at this point. And so, you know, it's such a time-consuming process to get this together, considering that most of the years end up being excluded. But again, there's no other way of doing this at all. You know, there's no other way of working out which years have cropped up the most during the updates. So, we're looking at years that have 4 hits or more, basically. And the very, very first year, interestingly, but we have, you know, back to 1836, the year of 1836, actually cropped up 4 times. It has 4 hits. So, it had a hit for spring England Wales rainfall. It also had a hit there. I think it has a hit for spring CT and also for spring England and Wales rainfall. It also has a hit in this column just here. That's the 3rd hit, which is for June CT. And if that wasn't enough, it has a 4th hit just here, which is for July England and Wales rainfall as well. So that crops up 4 times, and therefore that can be included in our final forecast analogues. Let's come on down. So we come down through all the years. Remember, the vast majority of these years are not going to make it. The vast majority of these years will be excluded. Another year that crops up 4 times, has 4 hits, is going to be 1978. This year just here. So that crops up 1, 2, 3, and 4 times through this season of the autumn updates. And so that one can also be included within our final forecast analogues. And then another year that crops up 4 times is going to be right down here towards the bottom in 2000 and where is it? It's 2005, just here. That crops up 1, 2, 3, and 4 times. Also 2008, cropping up 1, 2, 3, and 4. Of course, the further down we go, we start being able to include things like the QBO, for example, as well, quasi-binary oscillation and whatnot. We can only start including that from like 1950. Now, are there any years that crop up even more than 4 times? Because ideally, we would try and get years that crop up 5, 6, if we can, 7 times. So, are there any other years that crop up more than 4 times? Yes, there are actually a couple of years that do this. So, we have 1 year that crops up 5 times is in 1925. Look at that, crops up 1, has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 hits in 1925. But the only other year that crops up 5 times is actually 1955. This year, just here, with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 hits. So 1925 and 1955 are leading the pack in terms of being the 2 years that crop up 5 times. Ideally, we will have years that crop up more than that, actually. And so, let's come down to, let's come down to our leading years then. And I'll explain why this is going to be a very, very difficult forecast once again. So, these are our leading years just here. For this year's autumn forecast. Cropping up 4 times with 4 hits, we have, let's do this, we have 1836, we have 1873, we have 1914, we have 1934, we have 1943, we have 1978, we have 1983, we have 2005, and 2008. Those years, all those years have cropped up 4 times and are included in our final forecast. Then we have 2 years that crop up 5 times, have 5 hits, which is 1925 and 1955, and they are the 2 years that are leading the pack. Ideally, in a perfect world, we would have years that crop up 6 or maybe even 7 times, and we'll have a very clear-cut signal. In a moment, we'll start going through the data for these years, and you'll see they are very conflicting years, and there's no particular year that's standing out as really impacting. So again, we've seen this quite a lot over the forecast over the past year or so. Again, we find ourselves in a situation where we have a very, very difficult forecast. Very difficult forecast ahead. I'll just explain the rest of the column. So this column is showing how many years after solar minimum or before solar minimum of their respective solar cycles these autumns are taking place. So, for example, most of the years are actually within 1 or 2 years of their solar cycle, as we are this year. So this autumn it could be like 1 to 2 years from its solar minimum, or the start of its solar cycle. Most of the years are in a similar situation. 1978, for example, 1934, 1914, 1836, 1955, 1925, all within a year or two of their solar cycle. There are 1 or 2 outliers in there, and they should be weighted a little bit lower, I suppose, in the forecast. So 1983, for example, was 3 years before its solar minimum, and 2005 was actually 4 years before its solar minimum. 2008 was 1 year before its solar minimum. 1873 was 6 years after its solar minimum. But it's interesting, isn't it, how the majority of the years are actually within 1 or 2 of their solar minimum. And this column here is explaining, whether the September, October, November within these autumns was warmer or colder than average. So you see, but quite a few of these look quite warm, don't they? Especially these ones down here, particularly for September and October. Perhaps a little bit less clear cut for November. And then this is precipitation column just here for September, October, November of these autumns. And also a real mixed bag, actually, doesn't it? The temperatures look very mixed and balanced as well, really. But precipitation perhaps even more so, looking quite mixed and quite balanced, really, between wetter and drier months. So we've got a difficult forecast here to get through, and in a moment we're going to start showing you all of the data, but I'll pause the video there because we have a lot to digest, so I'll pause the video there. When we come back, I'll start going through all of the analogues based on those based on those years, and then we'll give you the forecast after that. So I should see you around 2 seconds time. See you very soon. Okay, we're back, and we're ready to resume the GavsWeatherVids Autumn 2021 forecast. So I hope you're enjoying the video so far. In the first part of the video, we went through the spreadsheet that Terry Scoldy got together for us, and showed you which years are leading in terms of the autumn updates that we've been doing over the past 3 months. So thank you so much, Terry, for getting that together for us. Incredible work, Terry. And I just wish I could go, show even more of that spreadsheet. But we've got to move on, got to crack on with the forecast. So now we're going to start showing you the data. So with the 4 hits within the GavsWeatherVids autumn forecast methodology, this is the autumn of 1836, and it's a cold and wet autumn with below average heights across northern and western Europe. It's combined with blocking to the north as well. So it's a cold, wet autumn in 1836 starting us off. With 4 hits again, we have 1873. This one has below average heights across northern and western Europe. There is a bit of a mid-Atlantic ridge as well. That's not quite a clear-cut cold signal for this, but certainly very unsettled and probably quite a chilly autumn as well in 1873. Again, with 4 hits, we have 1914. This one is a milder autumn with higher pressure sitting to the west of the UK and lower pressure to our south and east. Winds tending to be a little bit more from a westerly direction or a southwesterly direction with bad. I think it's a relatively mild autumn in 1914. A long gap then to 1943. This one also has 4 hits. This with above average heights in the Atlantic, high pressure in the Atlantic, low pressure extending down west of Europe. Just a rather mild and unsettled autumn in 1943. Again, a long gap to 1978 with 4 hits. We have 1978. It's still hanging in there. You know how interested I was in 1978 earlier on in the year. And here we go again. 1978 is still there. Funny how it keeps cropping up, isn't it? With low pressure to the north, high pressure over the country. That's a very dry and very mild autumn in 1978. Again, with 4 hits, we have 1983. This one, once more, is quite a mild autumn with above average heights across western Europe and bringing up wind from a southwestern direction. It does have a cool and wet September. And then with 4 hits again, we have 2005. This is a very warm autumn with above average heights sitting to our east, and we bring up the wind from a southerly direction a lot of time during this autumn. So very warm in September and October. November has a very mild first half, and then there is a dramatic flip in the second half of November to much colder northerly winds. And then finally, with 4 hits, we have 2008. This one is a rather colder autumn with above average heights just out to our west and below average heights to our east. And with this one, yes, we do get some colder intervals. September is a rather cooler and more unsettled month than, many Septembers in the first decade of the 21st century. October has a very, very early snowfall late in October. So yes, there is lying snow across lowland southern England at the end of October 2008, and November has regular cold snaps as well. So that's a rather colder autumn in 2008, although not dramatically so. But the snow at the end of October is quite unusual. Right, so let's start putting all of that together. So this is how all Septembers combined are looking in the years that score 4 or more, 4 hits or more. And overall, it's an unsettled signal for these Septembers, with low pressure across the UK and Ireland, high pressure pulled out in the Atlantic. Jet stream is on a northwest to southeast alignment, so a cool and wettish signal actually for those Septembers. An unsettled, cool, wet month to start us off overall. This is how all Octobers combined look in the year scoring 4 hits or more. Generally much more anticyclonic and not as cold. So low pressure tends to be pushed northwards, high pressure tends to be sitting over and slightly to the west of the country. Probably still a bit of a northwest-southeast alignment to the jet stream, so it could be a little bit on the cool side at times, but generally not as cold in terms of average. But the main significant difference in that is a lot drier, with that area of above average height centered just over and to the west of the country. And then this is how all Novembers combined are looking in all of the years that score 4 or more. And this time we find that we get high pressure out to our west. And so still a relatively dry signal. These autumns do look rather dry, I have to say, after potentially quite a wettish September. October and November look like they're shaping up to be quite dry. Maybe a little bit more cold potential with these Novembers. Really depends how far northwards we get that area of high pressure. We could bring mild gunk around the top of the high, which would be cloudy and mild. If we get high towards Greenland, then we would be pulling in something rather colder in those Novembers. This is how all autumns combined are looking in the years that score 4 or more. So overall, yes, we get a mid-Atlantic ridge setting up, high pressure in the Atlantic, low pressure across northern and central parts of Europe. So it is a relatively dry signal, I think, after a wettish September. October and November do look drier, and potentially rather coolish signal as well. So it's rather cool in September, which is unsettled, and then November rather cool as well. October could be a little bit less cool. And we see this with the temperature anomaly. So this is how the temperature anomaly looks for those years scoring 4 or more. And generally it is a below average autumn that's predicted there. A cold and average autumn being predicted for northern and also western parts of Europe with below average temperatures. And a drier than average autumn is predicted as well. And surprisingly, with that high pressure a lot of times sent to our west. What rain we do get looks like it happens quite early on in September. So just narrowing things down to look at the years after 1950. So these are all of the years that score 4 hits or more, but post 1950. That's a little bit more relevant to our modern climate. We do exclude a lot of the years, though, so it's a relatively small sample. We've only got 1978, 1983, 2005, 2008, of course, 1955, which we'll talk about in a moment, scoring 5 hits. So this is how all Septembers combined are looking in the years scoring 4 or more. And it's more of an anticyclonic month, less of an unsettled signal, and less of a cold signal as well. Low pressure more centred around Iceland and Greenland. High pressure just to our west-southwest, obviously much more westerly. Could still be unsettled, especially so for northern areas, but certainly more influence on high pressure and not as cold with those Septembers after 1950. Not much difference for October, still relatively anticyclonic, still relatively dry, really, with high pressure still centred generally to our west, so a relatively dry signal for those Octobers, and still a relatively dry signal for the November as well. So once we get beyond 1950, it becomes a very, very clear signal for a dry autumn, actually, and probably quite a mild autumn as well, or certainly not a particularly cold autumn, to be honest, with plenty of high pressure knocking around. Of course, by November, high pressure can be getting a little bit colder. It's how all autumns combined looking for the year scoring 4 or more post 1950, and again we tend to have an anticyclonic signal with high pressure dominated, so a dry autumn is definitely favoured there. You can see the difference with the temperature anomaly after 1950. Clearly we lose those cold and average temperature anomalies and we revert to near normal, to possibly even slightly above average. And for precipitation, not much difference. It was a dry set you know, with the all years combined, and for the all years combined post 1950, it's still a dry set. So a dry autumn is definitely favoured. The difference is in the temperature, where after 1950 we do favour a rather warmer temperature anomaly. And what about the years that score 5 hits? So these are our top 2 analogues. This is the autumn of 1925, very, very long time ago. We have to bear that in mind. It has a mid-Atlantic ridge and it has northern blocking with below average heights across northern West Europe. So it is rather a cold and unsettled autumn in 1925. We also have 1955, which is more anticyclonic. It's not as unsettled. It's a drier autumn with higher pressure tending to be more to our west and northwest, rather an extended summer really in 1955. So very conflicting, very contrasting actually between 1925 and 1955, although both years ending in 5, very conflicting and contrasting signals. All Septembers, remember, just 2 years with this. All Septembers combined for the 2 years that score 5 hits look like that. Overall, quite an unsettled, but 1925 is skewering that a little bit. I think above average heights extending, or below average heights extending down the western side of Europe with a mid-Atlantic ridge. So it looks rather cool and wet signal those years that score 5 hits. You can see the problem we've got here with this forecast, and I will get on to the forecast in a moment. This is how all Octobers combined are looking, the 2 of them, for the years that score 5 hits. Again, the above average heights to our west and northwest, and below average heights to our east. So a bit of a northerly signal, probably quite a cool and dry signal for those Octobers. And then all Novembers, both of them, 1925, 1955, look like that. And a little bit more of a blocking signal. Again, I think 1925 is probably skewing this quite a bit, but a little bit more of a blocking signal towards Iceland and Greenland with some lower pressure down here. And probably in winds from the east or northeast. Although I think November 1955 is actually quite a mild sort of signal. In terms of in terms of the 2 autumns of 1925 and 1955, scoring 5 hits, they have above average heights to our west and northwest, below average heights to our northeast. So a relatively dry but potentially quite cool signal with those 2 years. You see the temperature anomaly. It is for those 2 autumns coming out colder than average. Again, I think out of the 2, 925 skewers that quite a bit. But yes, we do have a cold average temperature anomaly for those autumns. And for the precipitation anomaly, the 2 of them, again, and this is the one consistent thing, actually, and it's quite unusual, because normally precipitation is the weaker signal, but this is very consistent throughout all of this. The precipitation anomaly is coming out drier than average for those 2 years, scoring 5 hits, 1925 and 1955. Right, so that's how all of the data looks. I'm going to pause the video one last time, and when I return, I'm going to give you the GavsWeatherVids Autumn 2021 forecast. But one little pause left, and I shall see you in around 2 seconds' time with our forecast. See you in a second. Okay, we're back, and it's time now to deliver the GavsWeatherVids Autumn 2021 forecast. And this is a very, 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 very difficult forecast to get together. As you've seen going through the data, we have very, very conflicting, very contrasting signals going on. The one signal that comes through loud and clear is this is likely to be a dry autumn. So I think that's the first thing to put on the table, because that is clearly like the most consistent signal that this autumn is likely to be drier than average. So I would suspect, you know, we will have below average rainfall for the season as a whole. Does look as though this is going to be a pretty dry autumn. The big problem is with like the temperature and the overall pattern, the way that it all works out. Obviously, we're going to be seeing higher pressure around. If we're having a drier season, then we're going to be having higher pressure. The question is, where does the higher pressure sit and you know, what does that do for the temperatures? And that's very, very difficult. Broadly, it looks as though most of the years are favouring quite a coolish autumn. But I think with high pressure around and quite influential, especially early on in the season, we have to take into account the fact that, you know, we are a lot of time quite warm. And so I think we have to increase the temperature not only based on what and most of those analogues are showing. So although most of the analogues seem to show like a cooler than average autumn, I think we've still got to go, because of the high pressure signal and the overall dry signal, I think we still have to go probably for quite a mild autumn with rather above average temperatures. But I wouldn't expect an excessively warm autumn with this. There's nothing there that suggests a really hot autumn. Of course, possible that that's wrong and we will have a very hot autumn. But I would say the temperature is likely around half a degree, maybe up to a degree above the 81 to 2010 average. Not excessive, not excessively hot season. And again, rather dry on average with more of an anticyclonic type signal. The way it all works out, I suspect, and this is more of a guess, this is the best educated guess that I could give, is that September likely to be rather dry a lot of the time, and a little bit warmer average. I don't mean to be excessively hot, although the moment within the shorter range model output like the GFS and ECM, it looks like they are playing around the idea of really high temperatures potentially in the first week of September. It may get hot for a day or two, but I think that although perhaps a little bit above average, the CET will probably be within half a degree, 1 degree or so of the long-term average. So yes, a bit warmer than average for September, but not excessive, and rather dry. I think uncertain interludes will probably be quite short-lived, probably as a result of like ex-hurricanes and things blowing through as areas of low pressure, shaking things up a little bit, but probably getting back to high pressure quite quickly. I suspect that probably goes on into October as well, so I reckon October could be a rather anticyclonic month also. Maybe, the further on you get through the autumn, the harder it is for high pressure to keep going, because of course the polar vortex is ramping up, more energy is becoming available all over the place, and so high pressure will struggle more and more and more as you go through the autumn. But I think through October, probably again quite an anticyclonic signal a lot of time, maybe a breakdown later on, but I think still quite a bit of high pressure for October, and again that probably works out. I mean, you never know, because by October, if the high pressure is to our northwest, we could pull in a cold northeasterly wind, and we would have a below average temperature anomaly. So the temperatures on this are really up for grabs, actually. But I think on balance of probability, with the modern climate that we have, probably October again is a little bit above average temperature-wise, maybe half a degree or so. And again, is probably drier than average. Now, November is the joker with this, because it's going to be hard to sustain like 3 months of high pressure weather. We can do that sometimes. We did it in 1978, and that is a year with, a key year within the analogues. But I've got a feeling that November will see a flip. Now, the question is, a flip to what? It might see a flip to northern blocking and become a much, much colder month, potentially quite a wintry month. I think there's a low probability that happens, but I won't discount the possibility. I think the more likely scenario for November is just that the jet stream goes southwards, so it does turn quite a bit cooler, but also potentially rather more stormier as well. We probably don't have the northern blocking in place enough to be able to drive in, really cold temperatures in November. But I wouldn't rule it out. I would not rule that out, that we have a very cold November. But for November, I'd be thinking more along the lines of a rather stormy month, the jet stream plunging southwards, going south of the UK, so it is a cooler month as well, but not far enough south and not enough blocking to allow really cold weather to set in. Just generally rather cool and rather stormy, and November could be rather wet as well, actually. I don't think it'll be wet enough to make the season as a whole. I don't think it'll be wetter to make the season as a whole wetter than average, but I think November out of the 3 is the month that probably has the best chance of being wetter than average, and rather unsettled, rather stormy, with low pressure much more in the ascendancy. And I would not be surprised if there's at least 1, maybe 2 potent cold snaps, probably most likely towards the end of the season, actually, towards the end of November. I would think that's the most likely period. If we are going to get like autumn snowfalls, probably be later on in November, because again, you can't discount it in earlier November and whatnot, but I think it'll be later on in the season if we do get like a potent cold snap. But I would be looking out for at least one. I'm not sure where that will occur, but I would look out for at least one, you know, potentially quite cold spell of weather. So overall, a little bit milder than average, but not excessively warm. Particularly so, you know, earlier on in the season. November might even come out a little bit below average. I wouldn't rule that out either. And just generally quite dry, I think, for this season until later on when we probably get that flip into much more unsettled weather. Now, bear in mind, this is a very, very low confidence forecast. It's basically just an educated guess, really. So, the way that our methodology has worked out, you know, you can see how conflicting, how contrasting the signals are. And I'm just going with my own gut feeling more than anything, actually, with this. So I could be totally wrong with this. I would not be surprised if I was. I would not be that surprised if if the season did something completely unexpected, maybe turned very cold, or we had a really hot season. But my guess is the forecast that I've just delivered, and it's the best I can do for you, because once again the signals are just so conflicting and so contrasting. But one thing that does come out loud and clear is that it should have a rather dry than average season. So that's the thing I'm most confident about. Normally that's the thing that I'm least confident about. Precipitation is normally the thing, you know, that is most uncertain. But with this update, very strange forecast. It's actually the precipitation side, but that has a stronger signal, and less so for temperature and the overall pattern. So that's the best I can do for you, and that is our autumn 2021 forecast. We shall see how it works out, you know, and we'll come back and evaluate, of course, as we always do, at the end of the season. Now, of course, a big unknown as well that I haven't spoken about is like the hurricanes and this hurricane season, because we already see that this is going to be a big hurricane season, quite clearly, with storms and hurricanes that we've already had, and we're only at the end of August, so we've still got September and October to go, and I doubt that things will get any quieter for the next few weeks. They'll get more active, probably, if anything. So that is the big unknown, and why autumn is always a very difficult season to forecast. Well, at the moment, it looks like a lot of these storms are actually promoting ridging in our part of the Atlantic, and so that's the reason, particularly earlier on in September, for example, but I'm thinking it's going to be a relatively anticyclonic month with quite a bit of dry weather. But it only takes one of those ex-hurricanes to interact with a jet stream and demolish the ridge, and you can find yourself going very, very quickly and suddenly into a prolonged spell of low pressure. So the big unknown is the hurricane season. At the moment, I think this hurricane season is promoting high pressure, but in the end, it might be the thing that destroys the high pressure. You know, and when that happens, we could get a complete flip into a totally different pattern, and they might start interacting with the jet stream in a very, very different way. So there's a lot to focus on. There's a lot that can go wrong with this forecast, and so that's just the best that I can do for you with this one, I'm afraid. So we shall see how it works out. I won't change the forecast. You know, if we do get the high pressure collapsing and going very unsettled earlier on than the forecast anticipates, I won't update the forecast. You know, the forecast will be wrong, and when we get to the end of the season, then I'll let everybody know that the forecast was wrong. Of course I will. So I don't sort of do a rolling forecast. Once the forecast is released, that's it. And we just wait and see how it does. So we shall see what happens. And it's going to be an interesting autumn, I think, to say the least. Right, so that is it for the GavsWeatherVids Autumn 2021 forecast. In the final analysis, little bit above average with the temperature, not excessively warm, just around half a degree to maybe 1 degree above the 81-2010 average. Significant signal to be drier than average, especially through the early and middle part of the autumn, maybe wetter, cooler and colder and stormier towards the latter stages of the season. That's as much as we can do for you. So if you enjoyed this autumn forecast, please can you smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for doing that. You're going to be able to see future weather content if you do that. And drop a comment right now and let us know what you think about this forecast and all of our forecasts. And thank you so much to Richard, of course, for the amazing gift. Let's have another look at it. Thank you so much to Rich for the gift. Thank you so much to Terry as well for all of the help. Terry is like a guiding hand, reassuring hand on the shoulder. So thank you so much to Terry. And of course, thank you so much to Shrine as well for all of the help through this season of autumn updates. Next week, the winter updates are starting. And in a couple of hours' time, at 3:30 or so, 3:30, something like that, we're going to have a look at what goes into the winter forecast methodology. It'll be like a bit of a sneak peek for winter 2021-2022 as well. Don't forget the Sunny Roundup coming up between now and then. That'll be around lunchtime. So it's going to be the final study roundup of the year, and we're going to be live streaming from 6 o'clock. I'm sure I have a lot of questions to ask about this forecast, so I'll see you at 6, and you know, you can fire away, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. But for the GavsWeatherVids Autumn 2021 forecast, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.